Okay, I'm going to try to make this a little bit clearer. I know that it can be really confusing because there's so much going on at one time. But hopefully these notes will help you, and you can copy these down or take a screenshot and see if this is helpful. But in JavaScript, the two parts of JavaScript that we're dealing with right now, this part of JavaScript, we are defining a function, and that tells you what is going to happen, what values will change, where it needs to change, what the things are. And then there's calling the function afterwards, which is when is it going to happen. So by trying to remember that defining it is what's going to happen and calling it is when it's going to happen, I think that actually helped me understand a little more. So in this particular case, you've got, this is the pony exercise. So you've got two inputs. Excuse my drawing with my mouse here. So you've got two inputs, and then underneath that you've got some text. All right. So what the whole point is, as you input something into these input boxes, the text will change. So in order to do that, you have to know what's going to change, and you have to be able to ID it. So this input, the ID of this top input is called color input. That's its ID. Oopsie, spell it right. If you don't spell it right, it won't work. All right. And this ID is called verb input. Okay, that's what those are called. Now, you've got little spans in your text, and you've got a span that's going to change, and that ID is, let's see, called, they're just called color and verb. So you've got a span ID that's called color, and you've got a span ID that's called verb. Okay, so these are all the input. These are input values. So remember that when you're doing input, so you've got values. And these, what you're changing, is called text content. Actually, I should probably once again put these the way they are. Value would be all lowercase. All right. And text content, I think, is camel case. So it's text content. All right. So the values, you've got values of your input, and you've got text content here. So the idea here is what's going to change is the text content. So color.text content, the color.text content, the text content of color is going to change. It's going to equal the value of color input. So text content color is going to equal color input value. All right. So actually, you have to do it. You have to do it the way you have to do it. So you have to say the name of the ID, and then what about that ID. So it's going to be the ID is, we're changing this. So you're changing the ID color. Let's see if I can get that to work. You're changing the ID color, and the part of that you're changing is the text content. All right, and you're going to make that equal to, same thing, color input is the ID, and what about that color input? It's the value of it. So this is the actual ID comes first, and then what about that ID? Right? So color input is the ID here, color is the ID here. So you're going to change so this is what you're going to do as part of the function. You're going to change the text content of the span color, and you're going to make it equal to the value that's in color input, which is the ID here. All right? And the same thing's going to happen for the verb. So as part of that same function, you can say that the verb, I think that this capitalized automatically. It needs to not. Okay. Once again, I'm working in OneNote, not in Grok. So when you're in Grok, it'll make more sense to you. All right. So in this case, we're going to change the verb. We want that to be a lowercase v, maybe. Text, see, it changes it automatically. We want it to not do that. So the verb text content is going to equal the verb input value. All right, so verb input dot value. All right, and then you've got to put after each of these, I think, as far as that, just because it's JavaScript, you have to put in your little, these guys, semicolons. But that's the right. So this is what how your function is going to end up looking. So it already gives you the first part, color. It actually shows it to you, color input value. So there's that. So that's the second. So the idea is that is the what is going to happen. Now, at the bottom, after you've got your function, and you're gonna call your function, and that's going to say when it's going to happen. So when it happens is on input of these guys. So on input, so once again, you're starting with the ID. So color input when it's going to happen is on input, which is all lowercase input. That's the tricky part, is figuring that out. And at that point, what you want to do is you want to call your function. Well, whatever you called your function, in this case they call the function input action, that would be on the top. So this is, you're going to call your function. So this is going to be the function name, whatever the function name is. And then you end up, that was semicolon also. Obviously there's no spaces here. Whatever your I can't get it to work. You get the idea here. Function name. Oh, there's two ends. All right, doesn't matter. So that's your function there, and the same thing is going to happen for the verb. So actually this one was pretty simple, but the whole point of this is understanding it. So in this case, the verb input on input, and you have to of course make sure you spell it right, is the same thing. It's going to also equal this function name, whatever you called the function, whatever the function name is, and a semicolon. So once again, I know I blabbered on, but if you can understand this, go back and look at this again, that the JavaScript, the definition is what is going to happen. When you call it, it's when it's going to happen. So this part was what is going to happen. The text content of the ID color is going to equal the value of the ID color input. All right, and same thing obviously for the verb. And in this case, they do it in the other direction. Now once you've got the function defined, the calling it is going to be when it's going to happen. So color input is the ID of what you're actually going to be typing in. On input, when you put it in, you're going to call this function. I know I rambled on, but I hope if you look at this, it's going to make sense.